Welcome to episode 19 of the Talking Fires podcast. I'm your host, Ben Fadden, here with Jacob Zimmermann. How's it going,
But
Jacob?
Good. Glad to be here, man.
We're doing good. So, Padres coming off of a 4-game split with the New York Mets. It was a little disappointing for me, considering that they took the first 2 games of this series. Everything was looking good. I wasn't expecting them to beat deGrom on Saturday, but then on Sunday here, they kind of fell flat. Stroman's a good pitcher, but just seemed like the offense wasn't clicking. We'll get to all that. We'll get to a series preview with the Cubs after they got swept last week in Chicago against them, hoping for better results there. But first, let's start with game 1 of this series. On Thursday, the Padres ended up taking this game 4-3. This was a big game from Fernando Tatis Jr. It seems like when he returns from every game, it's absolutely huge. Whenever it's an injury or from COVID, that big game against Seattle, here he hits the home run, and then he scores on a wild pitch. He was returning from this game, had the oblique tightness, and he exited in that Chicago series last week at Wrigley. Homers in the bottom of the third that made it 2-0. Like I said, he scored on the wild pitch. James McCann had a 2-run homer. He was on fire this series. Later in the inning, bases loaded for Pete Alonso. This was a huge situation, I thought, with Tim Hill on the mound. He gets Alonso to ground into that 4-6-3 double play to keep it to a 2-run lead for San Diego, which was absolutely huge. Because the Mets would score one more with Billy McKinney tripling, which was really weird in my opinion because Machado was getting the ball in right field off the wall, and you never see that. So it was a big game. Yu Darvish was great. He was pulled after the McCann homer and then the hit by pitch to Dom Smith. I thought he could have gone maybe a little longer, but he ends up going 90 pitches, 5 1/3 innings, 2 earned runs, 4 hits, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. So it was a good all-around night from the Padres. I think you could say it was probably their best game. Friday was good, but in terms of, they scored more than 2 runs. Like that's how many they scored on Friday. And Darvish pitched pretty decently. The bullpen was great. Obviously mentioning Tim Hill. So Padres take this one 4-3. Jacob, what were your thoughts of Darvish and Tatis's return? That was a big game for him. And he pretty much, like I said earlier on, he pretty much won this game single-handedly with the wild pitch, scoring from third there, the homer. He was just huge.
Yeah, 100% there. I think that Tatis, that home run almost robbed, I believe. It was almost robbed. It came out of the glove. It's just an overall really good return. I was excited to see him back in the lineup. I was surprised, we weren't sure what was gonna happen. This was the most offense that we saw the whole series, which is kind of sad. Only four runs in one game. We didn't think that would be the high in this series, but the Padres' offensive struggles kind of continued. But that's for later games. Yu Darvish was, his usual reliable self. 5.1 innings pitched. Could have gone a little longer. I agree with that. Only 90 pitches, which was, kind of low for your ace. But he did good. Only allowed that 1 2-run home run by James McCann. 5 strikeouts, not high in the strikeouts, but, he only allowed 4 hits. That's all you can really ask out of him. Only 1 walk. Control was good. It was there. Just Tingler kind of pulled him early, and the bullpen finished the job. Tim Hill was really good. Craig Stammen was really good in this game. Didn't allow a hit. Emilio Pagan and Mark Melancon too, getting that save.
Yeah. You said, kind of pulling him early. I kind of mentioned that too. He was at 90 pitches, so I don't want to make it seem like, it was like 80 pitches and he Blake Snelled them where he pulled him out really early. But I understand why Tingler did it. Obviously, he had the McCann home run, hits Dom Smith, so maybe his control, had a little bit of fatigue near the end of that start there in that 6th inning. But again, like you mentioned, the bullpen stepped up, and this was an 11-game win streak at home after that win. So that was huge. I did want to mention Taijuan Walker going 5 innings, gives up 3 earned runs, 4 walks, 7 hits. He only struck out 2. So the Padres were making contact. They weren't afraid to be aggressive on Thursday night, improving to 35-23. Again, a big game from Tatis. And on Friday night, game 2 of the series, it was an intriguing pitching matchup. Jacob and I went to this game. Driving in, it was like, wow, we were kind of talking about who's going to give up more homers, who's going to walk more guys.
More walks, yeah.
Yeah. So, this was a big game, I think, for both guys. Snell, obviously, he hasn't performed up to expectations. He wants to be better. Of course, the fan base wants him to be better. Joey Lucchesi, though, all's well. Obviously, it's his revenge game. But it's not like, they traded him when they probably shouldn't have. It's not like a Pirates Rays situation where you trade Glass now and he's this like Cy Young caliber guy. Joey Lucchesi wasn't going to be a part of this rotation. I mean, he had like a above 4 earned run average career with the Padres. So maybe he had some extra motivation. He pitched well. So if that's what he needs, then, go ahead. But just going in this game, I did want to mention before we get into that, though, the fan reaction at Petco for Lucchesi was kind of mixed. There was some, obviously some fans cheering him, when he stepped on the mound or in the batter's box, and then they went back to cheering for the Padres. But as for Joey Lucchesi, I mean, he pitched really well. He only went 4 2/3 innings. That surprised me. Only 67 pitches, 3 strikeouts. He didn't walk anyone, which is really surprising. If you watch this game, and I obviously keep score for every game full game I watch, he was deep in counts. I mean, it seemed like every count was at least 3 balls. Like, for example, just the first inning, 3-2 to Sam, 3-2 to Machado, 3-2 to Cronenworth, 3-2 to Tatis. I mean, it was insane how deep, how big of a hole he got in terms of pitch count, but then he still got out of it, going only 67 pitches, 4 2/3 innings, 1 run on the Machado homer. That's really all that the Mets wanted out of him, especially, with guys hurt, Carrasco, Syndergaard. You just want length at the end of the day in the back of the rotation. So that was huge for Lucchesi. And for Snell, that was the big story of the night. Blake Snell coming in, absolutely dominant. He had a no-hitter through 6. Jacob got me a pizza during the game, and I looked at the scoreboard, and I was like, I'm not touching this pizza until what. And he finally gave up a hit.
Yeah.
When was that? Let's see, 7th inning to Francisco Lindor, of all people, who's been really struggling this year. Gives up the single, which Tommy Pham just decides to not get in front of the ball, and it goes to the wall, and Lindor gets to third.
Single turn to a triple. Yeah.
6 no-hit innings, and then in the 7th there, that was the best. That was his signature Blake Snell moment as a Padre, in a Padre uniform. This guy has a runner on third with no outs, and he gets out of it. I mean, I wasn't expecting that. He gives up a hit. Maybe he's a little rattled, or the fatigue kind of starts to set in, because he doesn't have that mindset of, oh, I need to be absolutely perfect here, or, he just had too much energy expended trying to keep that no-hitter alive. But, getting out of it there, after that Lindor single, striking out James McCann on 4 pitches, getting Alonso to pop out to first on a really long at bat, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pitch at bat to Alonso, and then striking out Brandon Drury. He was as pumped up as I've seen Blake Snell in a Padre uniform. And that was a really cool moment, because it's one thing to, strike out McCann, get Alonso to pop out, but I feel like that third out's the hardest, especially when you have that guy 90 feet away. What were your thoughts on Blake Snell's performance?
I mean, you can't say enough about Blake Snell's performance there. He was coming off the field after that 7th inning where he got out of the jam, and he was like this is my house, like he was getting pumped up, it's all over Twitter. Got me pumped up. It was, I know it's the Mets. I know it's that, they're missing a lot of players, but, to be able to get out of a jam where you got a runner on third and you got a hot James McCann coming up, and Pete Alonso even, able to get out of that, that's huge. But the whole night, he was striking out batters. 10 strikeouts, only one walk, one hit allowed. That was a single that Tommy Pham misplayed. It was just a stellar all-star performance from Blake Snell, and hopefully we can see more of that because I'm all here for it.
Yeah, I'll give him some applause. Yeah. So, but with that said, we're obviously complimenting him and saying he had a great start. I saw on Twitter that everyone's like, Blake Snell's back, and we saw all this. He was tremendous, like we just said. But I'm here to kind of take, I guess, it's not a hot take, I don't think, but just looking at the lineup that he faced, that just because Blake Snell went 6 no innings, 7 innings, no runs, a great start, it didn't do a whole lot for me in terms of having confidence that he can keep doing this and be that ace that we're expecting him. Is it in him? Yeah, I really do think so, because we've seen it. Obviously, we saw it in the World Series. We saw it when he won the Cy Young. But I think that, the Mets, the lineup that he faced, it was similar to Colorado when he had that great start. He finally went 6 innings for the first time since July of 2019. It was a couple star players, Trevor Story, Charlie Blackmon, and a bunch of nobodies. And for the Mets here, this was their lineup. I mean, Kevin Pillar, Francisco Lindor, James McCann, and Pete Alonso, maybe those are regulars, but it's really 3 starters. Kevin Pillar was their bench outfielder to start the year.
Yeah.
And the only reason that he's in the lineup right now is because Albert Almora is hurt. I know he's a bench player, but he's hurt. Michael Conforto's hurt. Brandon Nimmo's hurt. He's still hasn't taken live batting practice. So he's facing a minor league lineup. Look at the names. Brandon Drury. He was the starting third baseman for a rebuilding Diamondbacks team a few years ago. Brandon McKinney.
Yeah.
He was a bench player for the Brewers when he went off against us earlier this year. Jose Peraza, he's been a bench utility guy pretty much his entire career. Mason Williams, no one's heard of that guy. Dom Smith wasn't even in the starting lineup. He was pinch hitting. And then the pitcher spot, Travis Blankenhorn, who's ever heard of him? So I don't want to, say that Blake Snell, he had great stuff. If he was facing the Dodgers and still had that same stuff, maybe he gives up 1 run or 2 runs. So I'm not saying it was a bad outing. All I'm saying is until he can do this consistently, remember, this is the same thing that we thought about him with, like I mentioned, that Colorado start. We thought he was back. What does he do the next 2 starts in Milwaukee and Houston? He sucks. He gives up a bunch of homers. He gives up 7 earned runs, right, in Houston with the Kyle Tucker home run to start it off. So he hasn't been consistent enough, and until he does that, I can't just, act like he's a Cy Young caliber pitcher all of a sudden. So do you have that same?
About that, I know that we're talking about, he hasn't shown that consistency, and I completely agree with that. But I thought that this start was, I think this is actually a very good start towards the right direction for him, just because of how he was using his fastball. He wasn't overthinking that. And I feel like a lot of people aren't noticing that. I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, he's iffy about that. But when he uses that fastball, he actually really dominates, as we were talking about right after that game. It's kind of like Little League, just rear it back and blow it past the guy, because you got a lot of velo on that, and a lot of people can't catch it up to that. You don't have to overthink it. And I feel like Blake Snell needs to be able to do that on a consistent level, not overthink it, not have to worry about the off-speed pitches as much as just, rearing back and throwing that fastball and getting it past a lot of these guys.
Yeah, and you mentioned his fastball. We know that it's electric. We know that it can work when he commands it. It's just the fact that he hasn't used it, I think, aggressive enough. I've been harping on that all year. And it seems like the Colorado start, he used his fastball. He was aggressive with it. and he had success. But then what does he do the next start in Milwaukee? He like splits up his game plan. He goes from, trying to attack with his breaking ball pitches and not using his fastball enough. And then when that didn't work, when he gives up homers to Garcia and the catcher. And then he goes back to just being aggressive only with the fastball and not using breaking pitches. So there is a, mix that he has to have with the breaking pitches and the fastball. But I think if he just sticks, instead of, he's aggressive with the fastball with this Mets start. And then, if he start his next start, does he still have that same game plan? Because if he has that same game plan and he struggles, you know what? I'm actually fine with that, because that means that at least you find out that, okay, maybe I can't use the fastball like this, multiple starts in a row and have this be my, go-to pitch. Maybe I have to pick and choose. But if you don't do it back-to-back starts like that, how are you going to know? So I just think that
exactly, you have to think that you can get that consistency. You have to be able to, have a game plan and not go in just, guessing, oh, should we try this game? Should we try this another game? You have something that's working. You had something that worked. Obviously, you go 7 innings, 10 strikeouts. It worked against a team. It might not have been a best team at the time, but it worked. That's a major league team at the end of the day. So you try that in another game, and if it doesn't work, as you said, that's fine, because you're trying to stay consistent with it. You're trying to find your game plan because you're struggling, but you're trying to fix it and trying to get out of it. And sticking with the same thing is that you have to do that. You have to be able to find what you're good at, and if something works, like it just did. You got to be able to use that. You got to be able to do that, and Blake Snell just got to be able to figure that out.
Yeah, and the thing is, like I mentioned, we have a really good starting rotation, and if Blake Snell can pitch like he did against the Mets, I don't see how there's any problem. I just don't see how the Padres wouldn't have an elite rotation if Blake Snell can pitch like that. Because to be honest, we're not expecting Blake Snell to pitch like that, right? What we've seen with him this year, we'll take him giving a Chris Paddock start where he gives up 2-3 runs and goes 6 innings like he did this Sunday.
Exactly.
I think that's plenty good enough, because I know the offense hasn't been clicking as of late, but when it does, that's plenty enough runs. So I don't think it's, out of the question that Blake Snell, can turn things around, like we mentioned, and don't try to be perfect. I don't think we need him to try to be perfect, but be more consistent and have a more, consistent game plan, stick to it for a few starts instead of, cause it just feels like it's one game plan one day, and then the next start, it's a different game plan. I know it's different teams, but I'm just saying, you just got to try being more consistent, because at the end of the day, I forget how many starts he's had this year, but like 75% of them have been underwhelming. So what's another one underwhelming start, as long as we can, figure out, okay, maybe the fastball doesn't work, start in and start out. So Blake Snell, obviously, like, he had a great start, but it's just the big key is the consistency.
100%.
As for the bullpen on Friday night, Pierce Johnson pitched the 8th. Melanson pitched the 9th. Melanson got his 19th save of the year. He's been great. A couple, bad performances out of the bullpen, when it was a non-save situation or in those stupid, dopey extra inning rules with a runner on second. But
I hate that rule.
He's been great. Only had 20 pitches. He struck out all three outs with strikeouts. He did allow 2 hits, but he got out of it. And Pierce Johnson was good. So, Padres win this one 2-0. Obviously, Manny with the home run. Profar scores on a bases loaded walk in the 7th inning. And so
that was an RBI for him.
Yeah, seriously. That's one thing that I'm like, it's like, wow. So Machado finishes the night 1 for 3, scores a run, and has 2 RBIs. but his home run was a solo homer. So that's one RBI.
Yep.
And then the walk is another RBI when he didn't lift the bat off of his shoulders. So I want to know if we can ask the baseball encyclopedia people, if those people exist, why is that an RBI when RBI stands for run batted in, and Machado didn't
He
use
did not bat that in.
Yeah, he walked it in. The pitcher handed that second run on a silver platter. So
yeah,
that's one weird thing that just doesn't make sense. But Padres take this game 2-0. They improved to 36-23, 13 games over 500. Again, it was a great, night just for Padres in general. Obviously, they shut out the Mets, a minor league lineup, but it was a great game all around. On Saturday, game 3 of the series, this was probably the most anticipated game in my opinion, because obviously it's the best pitcher on the planet on the mound against another pretty dang good pitcher on this planet, Joe Musgrove. I think both are headed to the All-Star game.
100%.
deGrom
Joe
entered
Musgrove
it.
better be there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's been great. deGrom entered it with a .71 ERA and then would exit with a .62 earned run average.
That's ridiculous, man.
It's video game numbers is really what it is. The Padres' best opportunity to score off deGrom here was in the 4th inning. They had bases loaded. It seemed like deGrom wasn't, his command wasn't great. And then you had Tucupita Marcano, or you had Myers strike out, which was a good at bat. I'm not going to get mad at Myers striking out there. But then to have Marcano up, because he was not starting, have Marcano up playing left, that's not a great situation to put a rookie in who should really be in the minor leagues. But because Trent Grisham's on the IL, he's batting in a huge situation, high leverage situation, strikes out. That's once deGrom he rarely gives any team a bases loaded situation, and so when you don't cash on it, it's like, okay, you're done. That you're not going to have a chance. Yeah.
Got to take advantage of his mistakes because there's not a lot of them.
Absolutely tremendous. 7 innings, no runs, just 3 hits, 1 walk, struck out 11. He made Machado look foolish on 1 at bat. He made a lot of guys look foolish, really. As for the Mets, scoring wise, Peraza and Lindor both hit solo homers in the 8th. Jonathan Villar and Kevin Pillar had RBI singles in the 6th and 9th, respectively. Again, Padres offense shut out a night after the Mets offense was shut out, so they were kind of trading blows there. But what were your thoughts from, just deGrom's dominance, and if you thought the Padres lineup would have, snuck across a run in the 4th, and then, Joe Musgrove going, he wasn't, bad, but it was one of those things where it's almost like an all-star game where you have all these great pitchers, and if you make one mistake, well, you're not going to win because they have another great pitcher on the other side. So what were your thoughts on Musgrove, just the whole night in general?
Yeah, Musgrove was, he was kind of like, it was a tale of two stories because he had 10 strikeouts, right? 10 strikeouts, only 1 walk, but 8 hits, 3 earned runs, allowed 2 home runs, as you said. And, a 3 earned runs isn't bad out of a starter, especially your number 3 guy, but, he's played like a number 1 this year almost. As for deGrom, that you got to capitalize off those mistakes. Tatis was good against him. He got on base 3 times, I believe, against him. And when you have those bases loaded, I know it's Tucupita Marcano, but and Will Myers, but you got to take advantage of that. He only allowed 3 hits, 11 strikeouts. .62 ERA was also one of the it was like a record, I think. Something happened. It was a record that I saw there. But as for the rest of the Padres, Musgrove, my thoughts on this, is kind of 50-50. As I said, tale of two stories. High strikeouts, but high hits allowed. High, 3 earned runs isn't bad. But with the Padres offense this year, three earned runs isn't going to get you a win. It seems like he's 4-5 with a 2.33 ERA. I know that wins and losses don't tell the whole story because Jacob deGrom has 2 of them, and when he pitches, it seems like you shouldn't lose at all. But yeah, Musgrove was good. He wasn't dominant, but he was still really solid.
Yeah. And you mentioned the 3 runs that Musgrove gives up. When you're facing deGrom, you literally can't give up a run. Because if you do, you're setting yourself up for deGrom having to struggle to have a chance to win the game. I know the Mets bullpen isn't great. It doesn't seem like it has been behind deGrom. But when they have 4 runs late in the game, and the bullpen only has to get 6 outs, I think. Yeah, 6 outs. It's a formula for success for the Mets, and obviously not a good formula for the Padres. So what I did want to talk about, though, Padres lose, so they fall to 36-24. This was one of the hype matchups. Tatis against deGrom, arguably the best hitter in the National League right now. Probably, my guess is that the NL MVP right now. You could say Acuna against the best pitcher on the planet. I'm pretty confident saying it's the best pitcher I've ever seen in my lifetime watching live. Max Scherzer is really up there for me because of that, big 4 or 5 year stretch where he was amazing. But right now, he didn't age as well as Jacob deGrom has. He wasn't throwing 102, throwing 100 and then throwing 101, 102, with ease. And
consistently,
he wasn't using, it's not like he was using his fastball like, okay, I don't have to throw any breaking ball pitches because I know my fastball is going to blow people away. I was watching the Will Myers at bat. And I think that was the 4th inning when he struck out. And Myers was literally in defense mode the whole at bat. deGrom was just pumping 101, 102 fastballs right down the middle of the plate. And Myers was literally just sitting there and just fouling him off to the right side each and every time because he literally just couldn't catch up to it. You knew what was coming, and you just can't do anything with it because you literally have no time to react. But anyway, the Tatis deGrom matchup, it's pretty safe to say that Tatis won. First at bat, he stretched a single into the double when he technically singled into right field, stretching it into a double. Yep. Another just display of athleticism. Second at bat, reached on a fielder's choice on a grounder to the infield, and then he walked in the third at bat. So he gets on base all 3 times against the best pitcher on the planet. What were you expecting Tatis to have that much success with deGrom, or was it kind of one of those things where, yeah, he might get him once, but like he did on that double, and then he probably is going to strike out because deGrom's either going to blow one by him or he's just going to, use that breaking ball?
Yeah, Tatis, he steps up in the big situations. That's all I can say. He doesn't, sometimes he'll go against the worst pitchers on the planet and strike out 3 times, it seems like, and then go against Jacob deGrom and get on base 3 times. But yeah, I think he won this 100%. deGrom won the game, obviously, but Tatis won that individual matchup there between him and deGrom. As you said, got on base 3 times. That double that should have been a single is just another. You can add that to the category of Tatis's insane athleticism. I saw something on Twitter. I was like, when Tatis hits a single, he doesn't think single, he thinks double. When he hits something in the gap, he doesn't think double, he thinks triple. It's just, that individual matchup was 100% won by Fernando Tatis. As for the rest of the team, though, I don't know if we can speak for them if they won their individual matchups, but Tatis definitely won there. Yeah, Tatis definitely won his, though, 100%.
Yeah, he's just one of those players that you can't keep your eyes off of. A must watch. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You could be doing homework, or you could be, just not even really paying attention much to the game, or have it in the background, and you hear Tatis is up, and you immediately go watch it because he could either hit a home run, he could hit a ground ball to short and get a hit, he could hit a single to right field and put himself into scoring position for the next guy up, for Eric Hosmer up, even though Hosmer would swing at the first pitch and get out, like he did on Saturday.
Yeah, he struggled recently.
But again, it's just display of athleticism. We saw it on Sunday with the great play he made up the middle on the sliding play, which we'll get to. He's just a great talent, and he was a big reason why the Padres won the series opener. And he's a big reason why they're where they are right now, pretty near the top in the NL West, and he's right up there in the NL MVP race. Moving to Game 4 on Sunday, this was another entertaining game. Going into the game, it was supposed to be a big entertaining matchup. Chris Paddock on the mound. He's been pitching great since COVID. That he went on the COVID IL list against Marcus Stroman, who had the qualifying offer in the offseason, and he's pitched really well for the Mets this year after opting out in 2020. Padres end up losing this one, though, 6-2. The big story in this game was, James McCann was great again. Dom Smith hit a homer. Jurickson Profar acted like he never played center field before.
That center field wall hates him, I think.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Machado, though, was not in the lineup. As I said on the pregame thoughts, I thought this was just going to, it's just a rest day. Maybe if he was playing, it would have been like he wasn't playing anyway, because he ended up getting ejected. If fans listening haven't heard, he got ejected in the first inning because umpire Trip Gibson decided to put himself in the middle of attention and act like everyone bought a ticket to go see him. And so that was, Tinkler got ejected early in the game, for arguing or coming out of the dugout. I don't even think he was that mad. Maybe it was because of the Tatis check swing that wasn't a swing, that was ruled a swing in the previous inning. But I think that ejection was uncalled for. But as for this game, Marcus Stroman pitched well, 6.2, innings, 6 2/3, no runs. He had an RBI double, which definitely made me a little annoyed, because sitting there in the bleachers, looking at him standing on second, doing his big celebration, that just can't happen with a pitcher. Not the celebration, 100%. Celebrate all you want, but giving up a double, Kirk Stammen giving up the double to Stroman just can't happen. But the offense obviously didn't really show up. I'm not sure if Jurickson Profar will stay as the two-hitter or stay at the top of the lineup when other guys are out, like when Machado's out or when Tatis is out, because he's just not really producing up there. But like Tommy Pham, he had another good day, a weird day. Obviously in the offseason got stabbed coming off in Chicago, had the, collision with Ha-Seong Kim. And then today he gets hit in the head with a tag, and he kind of was shooken up a little bit. But he got back in there. He walked today. He walked again in the 5th. He doubled in the 7th. And then he got an RBI in the 9th, which was one of the Padres' 2 runs. So he's been really good at the top of the lineup with Trent Grisham being out. And you have to think that maybe, especially with Tatis hitting 4th, maybe Pham stays up there and Grisham hits 2nd, and Machado hits 3rd, and Cronenworth, gets down more in the lineup. I just think, he's kind of struggling in that 3 spot right now. But as for, as I mentioned, Dom Smith and James McCann hit homers. That was, Stroman with the double. That was the big, run scoring opportunities there, or run scoring, situations for the Mets on Sunday that led them to split this series with the Padres. What do you think of Chris Paddock? 94 pitches. People, the 3 earned runs. That's like out of a 5-starter. That's what a 4 or 5 starter. That's what the Padres want, I think. Yeah. And 6 strikeouts, 1 walk, 6 hits. Like I said, 3 earned runs, and it should have been 2 earned runs. Had Profar not ran in on a ball that ended up on the warning track, because that guy ended up scoring on an RBI single that inning. But just overall, your thoughts of Paddock? He did bounce back from his last start against Chicago.
Yeah, I think this is all you can really ask for out of your last starter in the rotation, or one of the last ones. Back end of the rotation. Chris Paddock struggled early in the year. and he's kind of bounced back these last couple games. I know the Chicago one kind of put a halt into that, bounce back. But 6 innings, that's really good. 6 hits, 3 earned runs. There were a couple or 1 home run allowed, but struck out 6. He really didn't hurt this team. Only allowed 3. That's pretty good out of your back end starter. You got to be able to produce runs for him. You got to understand that. Chris Paddock isn't the guy that's going to shut out a team. Allow 0 runs. Allow a no hitter. He's going to allow the 1 run, the 1 inning where he's going to give up a couple runs maybe. But you got to have some run support there. I think that Chris Paddock he really did all he could. It wasn't an insane start where it's going to blow you out of the water and end up on MLB's Instagram page. But it was quality. It was good. It was a very solid start from Chris Paddock.
And he's used it. Go ahead.
As for the the bullpen though, Craig Stammen, man, like I don't know what happened to him there, but I think he lost us this game. It was the bats obviously, but that 2 innings where he allowed 3 earned runs is just I know our bullpen's been good this year, and Craig Stammen's been the forerunner of that. But lately, I don't know what's going on with him. I just had to point that out. That was on my mind today. Craig Stammen.
Yeah, in the 7th inning, single gets double play. Peraza got on with a bunt single. It was a tremendous bunt. Stroman, obviously, the RBI double that kind of killed, the Padres' hopes of winning. I think there. Hits Alonso. He ends up scoring on the home run, and it's those free passes always kill you. But he's been good all year, so I'm not going to overreact to it. But in terms of this game, yeah, definitely I disagree with the point that he kind of lost the game, but he definitely did not help the Padres' cause of staying in the game. I
could say it like that, yeah, because it was the bats at the end of the day that didn't produce the runs, but that kind of diminished the hope, I feel, of the fans at least. You think you got a couple, it's the 7th inning. You think you got a couple more at bats, you got like 9 outs left to do something, and then that's just kind of like, oh, all right, this might be a little too out of reach now.
And that's a situation where if it was a closer game, maybe you see Machado instead of Jorge Mateo.
Yeah,
Mateo was playing third after Kim exited. I'm not sure if they had an update after the game on Kim, but he exited mid-game, so I was kind of worried about that. We'll see if we have an update on that. Jacob, can you look on that? But when we right moving on here, just briefly, talking about the bull. We mentioned Craig Stammen, Austin Adams. He pitched well. He walked 1 guy, but he struck out 2. He's one of those interesting pitchers to me because it's either can go all good or all bad. And it was good today. He didn't give up an earned run. Now just that 1 inning in the 8th. Just the walk sometimes can get him into trouble. But one other thing to touch on was obviously Fernando Tatis Jr.'s performance. Seems like we can talk about him on any game, every game. And he had a huge play, makes a diving stop in the 4th inning, the ground ball to his left. He makes a, pick kind of play, with his glove hand. He spins, throws it on a hop to Hosmer at first. So I think that was his best play all year. You could say the double play in LA was front work, but that was just a throw. Here it was a tremendous just stop. Even if he didn't make the throw, it was still a good play.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's, immediately turns, spins, and makes a great throw to Hosmer. It's one of those things, like I mentioned with Tatis's errors, and how one time he was on pace for 50 errors this year. Those come on those easy plays, and it has been better. I don't want to, say it hasn't been better this weekend. Watching those easy grounders to short, he's been much better, taking his time and not, rushing it. I think he's been more smooth with his transition from fielding it to throw, to throwing the ball to first. But that play was just a tremendous, show of athleticism, and it's those plays where he doesn't have time to think about it, where he can really have potential, really, to be one of the best defensive shortstops in the league.
Yeah, and he proved that in the 2020 season. This year he's really struggled on that, but that's a hang a star moment. Yeah,
which
at
didn't
shortstop he ate.
which didn't happen. I don't know what was happening
Yeah,
there. Tony Gwynn Jr. It didn't happen at the ballpark, so I don't know.
it should have been, I think, though. That was an amazing play. Hosmer actually caught the ball this time on the hop. A lot of fans, were bashing him on Twitter about that, but it was a one hop, but it was an easier one hop. It wasn't right at him. Um, he had to hurry it over there, and he did. And as you said, it's the easy plays that he struggles on. He's gotten a lot better on that, but those highlight plays, man, he does not miss out on those highlight plays. He's the most exciting player in baseball right now, and he just continues showing that. I feel like at least once every series, I see some new Tatis highlight.
Yeah. And after, so Padres lose this game. It was kind of, a bummer, like I mentioned at the beginning, where, once we won those first two games of the series, it was kind of like a downer, that they didn't win another game to win the series. Did you think that they, should have won this series? Or, a split's good because it's 4 games. You didn't lose the series, but when you win the first two games, it's kind of like, it just seems, missed opportunity kind of, to not win it.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with you on that. I wasn't expecting to win the Jacob deGrom game. If I'm being completely honest, that's like that's a future Hall of Famer. I'm going to say it now. It's a future Hall of Famer, Jacob deGrom. That it's very hard to win against a guy who's got a .7 ERA going into a game as a starter, who's pumping 100 miles per hour consistently in games. But I did expect to win the series 100%, especially after winning the first two. We're looking good. Our pitching was looking very good. And then the bats kind of just slowly died off after that deGrom game. I get it's a little demoralizing, getting shut out, but going against a guy like Marcus Stroman, who's been good. But we should have stepped up. I feel it was very disappointing just getting a split here. After you're like, oh, okay, just one more to win the series, we're good. Maybe we can even go for the sweep. But a split's not bad against a team who's a contender in their division this year, 100%. It's just a little disappointing to end up with a split after winning the first two. But the bats just kind of died out. Pitching just wasn't able to hold up as well as they were earlier in the series. But yeah, it's just a little disappointing. It's not terrible, but it's just again a little disappointing.
Yeah. Who would you say was your player of the series here? There was a lot of good moments. Fernando Tatis Jr. comes to mind. That's kind of the easy answer. It seems like, we both could say that, pretty much for every series this year. When he's healthy and he's not on the COVID list, he's just making plays. He makes things happen and keeps the Padres in games most of the time when they're losing. And when they're winning, he's an absolutely huge part of why they're winning. So who would you say, I guess, other than Tatis, since we've been talking about him here now, this episode, but who would you say, there was a lot of, you could say, Snell, obviously, on Friday, but who would you go with?
Okay, the first two that come to mind are obviously Blake Snell and Fernando Tatis Jr. But I feel like you got to give it somewhere, in that bullpen. Maybe Mark Melancon even 2 for 2 on those save opportunities. As for within the lineup, it's not a lot you could really think of. The bats weren't really hot this series. Maybe yeah, that's a really tough question because the only one that really stood out, I feel, is Fernando Tatis. Could maybe say Tommy Pham, but he had those errors that error in the field that kind of broke up, that kind of, because I was at that game, it kind of sticks in my mind a little bit more. But I'm gonna go a little obvious. I'm gonna say Blake Snell, just because it got the fans hype. I'm not really completely sold that Blake Snell's back, but it's definitely got me more hope. It gave me a lot more hope for the future of this rotation and of Blake Snell, because he's got these high expectations, and to be able to see him out there and see that energy, I've never seen that this year, and it was just really, really really, really exciting to see out there, especially when you're there live and you see him hyped, saying, "This is my house." It gets the Friar faithful very happy and very excited.
Yeah. Like you mentioned, Blake Snell, is definitely, the big option to go with, because just like you mentioned, seeing the passion that he showed, the energy on the mound on Friday, you haven't seen that this year because he hasn't, consistently pitched that well.
Yeah, and
So
he's looked like he's been, he's looked like he hasn't really wanted to be out there, and I wouldn't have wanted to if I was struggling that bad. But the last start I saw of him, he was, it was against Houston, and he was, he was like he came out of the field at the end of the first inning. He just looked like he didn't want to be there. He didn't want to be a part of this team for a second. He was looking at his catcher. I think it was Webster Rivas, and he was just like it looked like disgusted. And then to see him bounce back after that, it just shows how much fire and how much energy he actually has inside him, and how much he wants to get better. And hopefully he continues to stick with that same game plan. But it just got me. It shows that he could bounce back, and that gave me a lot of hope.
yeah, there were other good performers. Darvish pitched pretty well. Paddock pitched pretty well. But it's a slam dunk to say Snell and Tatis are the players of the weekend. Obviously, Tatis, he just kept the Padres in games. He single-handedly pretty much won Thursday night's game. Machado did have that big home run Friday, but
Yeah.
so Padres split this series. They are now 36-25, 590 win percentage. Going around the NL West, the Giants 37-22. They lost on Sunday, but they're 7-3 in their last 10. Padres are 4-6. Dodgers are 4-6. Giants still have a 2-game lead on the Padres. Dodgers are 1 game behind the Padres right now. We mentioned, Evan Longoria is going to be out for, a sustained period of time. So maybe they'll fall back from that. And this might be a good opportunity for the Padres to get in the Dodgers to get up there in the standings ahead of the Giants. Rockies are out of the picture, 24-36. Diamondbacks out of the picture. They have fell off a cliff. They're already 18 games back, and we're in the start of June. So you're going to see a lot of trading happening with the Rockies and Diamondbacks, led by Trevor Story. I wouldn't expect the Diamondbacks to get rid of Ketel Marte, but maybe Eduardo Escobar is gone. Some of their pitchers are gone. But as for the division, the Giants, I don't expect them to hang in, this whole time, maybe as a wild card spot at the second wild card with some NL Central or NL East team. But Padres, Dodgers, they're right toe and toe. Dodgers lost Sunday against the Braves, which I was, kind of surprised that didn't get more national exposure, considering those are supposed to be the 2 top teams in the National League, 2 of the top 3 teams entering the season. But your thoughts on where the NL West stands right now, where the Padres stand, in between the Giants and Dodgers, and coming up this week with the Cubs. I think, this is a big opportunity which we'll talk about now. It's a big opportunity to, win a series, get some revenge from getting swept, and, continue to, keep up with the Giants and maybe slide up ahead of them.
The NL West right now, it's kind of it's the most competitive division right now, besides the last 2 teams in there, Diamondbacks and Rockies. But as we said in the beginning of the year, we weren't really worried about the Giants because they're a very old team. With older players, there are injuries that comes with that, and a lot of rest they're going to need. And it's showing right now. Evan Longoria, who's been a very good asset for that team, he's out for a little while now. Buster Posey takes off days, left and right here and there. He doesn't play a lot because of his age. But I'm not really worried about them. I don't really think they'll even be in the playoffs. To be honest, I think that they'll kind of fizzle out. But as for the Padres and Dodgers, that's the best 2 teams in baseball, in my opinion. Heading into the later on, when we head into the postseason, one's going to be winning the division and one's going to be the first NL wildcard team, in my opinion. just because of how hot both teams are, how much talent
Which is
both
gonna,
teams have.
yeah, which is gonna suck, by the way, especially if it's the Padres, because now you're playing a one-game playoff. You have Darvish on the mound. Okay, what if he has one of those starts where, which is rare, but what if he has one of those starts where he gives up 3 or 4 runs, and you're facing
Yeah,
Jacob deGrom or something, which is a very distinct
exactly. Yeah,
possibility. Because while the Mets are in first place right now, and some might
you
think
got the
that they're going to
Braves.
cruise, the Braves are right there, and they've had a terrible start to the season. I don't expect them that to continue. And the Phillies, I don't expect them to win the division, so they're definitely a wild card possibility. So the matchup I'd be scared, most about is a Darvish and deGrom, not because of I'm confident in Darvish, but it's one of those what if scenarios. If Darvish
Yeah.
struggles, you're not winning that game.
No, especially with deGrom out there, that's a recepe for disaster. You
So
you
you
gotta
win.
almost you gotta
You
yeah
go,
you gotta almost make winning the division a priority, like the top priority. And I know that they are saying that right now, but a lot of fans are like, oh yeah, we just make the playoffs, that's fine. No, you gotta go for the security almost of not just a one game, play and move on, or lose and you're out.
yeah, because there's
You
no
gotta have
wild
that
card
that
series this year.
Exactly. Yeah. There's not that 3-game series we had last year where we lost the first game and we're able to bounce back in the next two. This is one game and you're done. So you got to win the division to be able to have that security of, if you lose the first game, which hopefully we don't, hopefully we make the playoffs to begin with. But winning that division is got to be the top priority just for that playoff security. Just if you make a mistake in the first game and you end up losing, you can bounce back in the next two, maybe win 3 in a row. Yeah, I just that's just my opinion on that.
Yeah. Now moving to this Cubs series, Ryan Weathers on the mound against Albert Alzolay in Game 1. Game 2, Zach Davies, former Padre, had his best season in his career with the Padres last year, going up against Dinelson Lamet. Game 3 on Wednesday, a day game at 110. Yu Darvish against his former team that traded him for pretty much a bucket of baseballs, going up against Jake Arrieta, 2016 World Series hero for the Cubs. What are you expecting here? Weathers coming off allowing 4 earned runs in 5 innings against the Cubs. Lamet pitched well against the Cubs last week. Darvish obviously hasn't seen him this year, but he's definitely going to have some motivation. So what are you expecting here? I think obviously the Padres they need to win this series, especially after getting swept, in Chicago. Yeah, they didn't have Tatis, but it just wasn't a very inspiring performance. There wasn't much offense. So what do you need to see this week?
Um, I think let's get a sweep back. Why not? Dude? Let's just go get a sweep back at them. It's a very high chance that we could get this. Ryan Weathers did struggle in his last start, but he has a 2 ERA on this year. I'm looking for him to bounce back 100%. As for the Tuesday game, Dinelson Lamet, another start. He's coming out here starting this time. He played good in that last game against the Cubs. I think that was the game where Kim and Pham got hurt. So that game was just all over the place. Wasn't his fault really. He did allow a couple runs, but that's Dinelson Lamet, looking for him to have a dominant outing out here against a guy who's struggling this year, Zach Davies, who might have some fire in him. Zach Davies was on the Padres last year. We did trade him. He might have a little bit of motivation. As for that Wednesday game, Darvish, he's going to have some motivation. He's going to have that fire. You traded me for, as you said, a bucket of baseballs and a
One
pack of
year of
chewing
Zach
gum.
Davies, 1 year of
Yeah,
Zach Davies and some prospects that no one knows,
exactly.
and as a salary dump, and you didn't think you're going to contend, and now all of a sudden you are contending, and so
Yeah,
Darvish is going to be like, wow, I could have definitely helped here.
yeah, exactly. I could have been your ace. I could have helped you take that next step. Win the division, win. Contend for a maybe even a World Series if you have Darvish out there. You have that ace. Might be getting a little ahead of ourselves there, but you never know. Jake Arrieta struggled this year. He's not that same guy who was in Chicago, way back then. But not easily, but I'm looking for the Padres to get a sweep here, at least win 2 out of 3. But I think a sweep here would get the guys, very fired up. Get that payback kind of. for getting swept. We have our guys back. We have Fernando Tatis here. Hopefully Machado plays all 3 games. Tommy Pham, he's looking to continue his hot streak. Will Myers too. Maybe Eric Hosmer can get a little bit more consistent there. Yeah, I'm looking for a sweep here. That's my bold call of the week. A Padres sweep against the Chicago Cubs, who are a good team. They only have 3 less wins than us, but that's my prediction to sweep.
Yeah, game 2 is the only one that I feel like maybe the Padres are behind the 8 ball there, because Zach Davies, he is a good pitcher. He knows the Padres lineup, obviously. And Lamet, the big question for him is if he's going to go more than 4 innings. I don't see him doing that. I still think that they're going to, or maybe it's 4 1/3. I don't see him going full 5 innings. The Padres are really going to take him slow. They're confident in their bullpen. If Blake Snell continues to do this, if Chris Paddock continues to do this, if Ryan Weathers can give them innings, if Darvish continues to pitch like this, they're going to have plenty of rest, more rest for the bullpen, and those Nabil Chrismats and of the world, they'll have plenty of rest to be able to pitch after Lamet. And Stammen and guys like that. So I think that maybe Tuesday's the one game that, okay, yeah, I could see the Padres losing that. And then Monday, Wednesday, I see as great opportunities. Weathers on the mound and Darvish, obviously. Darvish Wednesday has to win that game. But I really expect, this is a series win. So, where do you judge, just real quick for 30 seconds or so, what do you think, where do you see this Padres team now? Do you think that they're in the same, the good spot? You think they're in a good spot right now in terms, we're right entering June. Is this where you expected them to be? I kind of, obviously we're not expecting them to have all these injuries. Drew Pomeranz, Trent Grisham, Austin Nola twice now. Tatis had COVID and then got hurt a little bit earlier this year. So you're not expecting the injuries, but I think they're in a good spot right now, given the circumstances.
Oh, 100%. We're in a great spot considering the circumstances, I think. Going through all that adversity that we faced, Trent Grisham hurt right now, Austin Nola hurt for the second time. That stretch where I think it was that Cardinal series, that Rocky series, where we had half our starters on the COVID list, either for COVID or contact tracing, and we end up sweeping the Cardinals out of that with our AAA team, the El Paso team. Like it I think that we're in an amazing spot. Overall, 36-25. I think that's exactly where I expected. I expected us to be either second or first in this division. Maybe not behind the Giants. That wouldn't have been my prediction. I would have said either behind the Dodgers or in first. But overall, that's considering the amount of adversity and the amount of troubles that the Padres have been through this year. I think that this is a prime spot for the Padres to be in, and a great spot for us to be in moving forward.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. As for this episode, thank you all for listening. Make sure to stay tuned for my interview with NBC7's Derek Togerson. He runs the big sports section there. That's coming out probably sometime Monday, maybe after the Cubs game, Padres game on Monday, or before that game. Stay tuned for that. You can always hit us up on Instagram and Twitter, and you might see this recorded session somewhere. And if you are, thank you very much for watching and staying with us. And again, thanks for listening, and we'll definitely check in with you after the Cubs series. Until then, Jacob and I signing off. Let's go Padres.
Go Padres.